Hi, my name is Andrea, and I'm part of the sociology class, and I'm here to introduce Toby Blomé. So Toby Blomé is a local Bay Area organizer for COOP, a women-led national peace, justice organization. Her activism has focused on building resistance to weaponized drones, which play a critical role in U.S. global domination, militarization, and state terror. She has organized extended and ongoing nonviolent protests at U.S. drone military bases in California and Nevada since 2009, peaceful blockades of U.S. drone bases, subsequent arrests and jail time have been a regular part of her activism. In 2012, Toby joined Code Peace delegation to Pakistan and heard firsthand the tragic stories from family members of the U.S. drone victims in Pakistan. She has been persistent in her nonviolent resistance ever since, in an effort to put my body where my heart is. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Sometimes I let my voice kind of soften, so just raise your hand if I, like this, and I'll know that I need to speak louder. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here on this beautiful sunny day. Take time out to find out a little bit more about the U.S. drone program and what it's up to. Before we get started on that, I wanted to take a quick survey. How many of you have people in your family that are in the U.S. military? Okay. And the other question I want to ask is, put a thumbs up if you're really happy, a thumb sideways if you're sort of and a thumbs down if you're unhappy about the results of the election last night. Any opinions? Okay. All right. Happy about some things, but not so about other things. All right. So what I want to do today in the short period that we have here is give you kind of a summary of what the drone program is. I can't include everything, just highlight the important parts. We're going to see a part of a very important film called National Bird. And my dear husband, where did he go? There he is. If he could pass out a flyer to everyone in the audience and people on the back table, that would be great. I have a one-page flyer I made up that has really important information. It has recommended books, films, and ways you can get involved if you care about this issue and you want to try to help us, all of us, stop it. And so the next question I want to ask is, how many of you feel like you know a fair amount about drone warfare, the U.S. drone program? How many people feel they know just a little bit? Raise your hand. And how many people feel like they really know absolutely nothing? Raise your hand. Okay, great. So there's so much to learn, but I'm going to just give you little tidbits to give you an overview. This picture of this Predator drone, that was one of the early, it was one of the first big combat drones that are used. Drones are basically, you can clump them all together. They call them unmanned aerial vehicles. So it's any vehicle that flies in the air that's controlled remotely. It can be as small as the drones. Most commonly, there's the Predator and the Reaper. They have missiles attached, and you can see the missiles in this picture. This is a Predator drone. It's one of the older models. The more newer model has the tail tips going upward. Whoa, what happened there? Not sure why it's doing that. Okay. And as you can see, this Predator drone here has just fired its Hellfire missiles. They can carry, I think that Predator carries up to 4, and the Reaper can carry 6 missiles. And just as the name gives you an idea, Hellfire, it creates a lot of hell on the ground for the people who are receiving these missiles. Bodies get torched and burned. Body parts get separated. Family members that try to rescue the loved ones have to go amongst a pile of body parts. And in the Muslim tradition, where most of these Hellfire missiles are fired, in countries that are predominantly Muslim, it's their tradition to try to bury bodies within 24 hours of the death. So if you can imagine what that's like to try to collect body parts and bury them, it's not a fun experience for the loved ones who survive. So this is the Global Hawk. It is you could call it a combat drone in terms of it's involved in the drone killing. It doesn't carry missiles, it doesn't fire missiles, but it's heavily involved in the surveillance. It's heavily involved in tracking people and following them in their lives for weeks or months at a time. People on the ground don't know that they're being tracked because this Global Hawk is thousands of miles up in the air. And the people that control the Global Hawk, there's a base in Marysville called Beale Air Force Base. Raise your hand if you've heard of Beale Air Force Base. Not too far from where you are in Marysville. They control the Global Hawk. So they're intimately in the inner unit of the base. There's the drone program at the base where they are managing the Global Hawk. And they work with Creech Air Force Base, which is in Nevada, north of Las Vegas, where they control the Predator and the Reaper drones. And they work together to help target people. They communicate with each other, the airmen at the Air Force Base and Creech Air Force Base. There's also many hundreds of different kinds of drones, some used in the military, some used elsewhere. This little, what looks like a mosquito, and when it flies around, it might appear to a quick eye that it would be just a flying insect, is actually a mechanical drone that could carry a little camera, carry a microphone. It could fly into someone's window and listen to someone's conversation. How much we're doing that on the battlefield or off the battlefield is unaware. Are we using these little drones to spy on people who are activists in this country? Do they hang out at marches when people are trying to be out in the street to protest injustices? Do the police have them? Maybe one day they will if they don't now. This is a good map to give you an idea of how the military drones work. As you can see, this is a map of the whole Earth and the continents. And you see on your left side is Creech Air Force Base, the yellow spot there. That's in Nevada. And so I said from Creech is where they control these combat drones that carry the missiles. But the thing is, in order for them to be effective, they have to be very quick. And in order for that to happen, you need a relay station, which is over in Germany, called Ramstein. Ramstein is the relay station for all the US drones that I'm aware of. So any communication from a drone base, there's one in New York called Hancock, there's other drone bases across the country. They all communicate to Ramstein, and then from Ramstein, the relay station, it goes up into the space where there's a satellite, and the satellite communicates down to where the drone is flying in countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. Well, not too much in Iran because Iran has a strong air force, so they can shoot them down. We have drones flying all over Africa and the Middle East, in Pakistan, Libya. And so if you were to shut down this base in Germany, it's an American base in Germany, if you shut it down, you could shut down the whole drone program until they could find another relay station. So there's been a lot of protests in Germany because the German people are very much against the drone killing that the US is doing. There's been thousands of people gathered to protest it. And so that's a problem about the legality there. And here's, just to give you an idea, this is an old map from a few years ago, but it gives you an idea of how many drone bases there are in the US. And there's anyway, this is the US. And at the time I prepared this PowerPoint, there were 10 to 15 drone bases in Africa. There were drone bases in Turkey. There are drone bases in Turkey. There's drone bases in Italy and Germany, United Arab Emirates, and the Philippines. So the use of drones in combat started under President Bush. In the early first term of President Bush, he started using drones to assassinate people around the world. Over the course of 8 years of his administration, on average, this is not based on, I got this flyer. This is sort of just to give you a rough picture. I don't know how accurate these numbers are, but it gives you an idea in that there were an average of a drone strike every 58.4 days in the Bush administration's 8-year term, or 8-year administration. And then when Obama got elected, Obama started escalating the drone program quite rapidly. Over the course of his 8 years of presidency, the average amount of drone strikes happened 1 every 5.4 days. So that was a huge increase in the use of drones to kill people in the world. And be reminded that this is not really combat, because our soldiers are in Nevada, our soldiers are in New York, and we're killing people thousands of miles away. So we don't have to feel the pressure of urgency in most circumstances. So here's a picture of the US bases around the world within Asia and Africa and Europe. And as you see, there's a lot of bases across continents there. There are 10 to 15 US bases in Italy alone. There's a tremendous amount of cost to keep these bases. We're keeping soldiers there, and just to ship them over there is costly. Lots of fossil fuel. There's no other country in the world that has military bases around the world. It's estimated that there are as many as 1,000 or more. Some people can say that counting the covert bases that are secret, the covert installations, there could be as many as 1,500 or 2,000. I don't know what the accurate number is, but what we do know is there's anywhere from 800 to 1,000 military bases by the US in countries that aren't ours. And many of the people are fighting a strong resistance in those countries because they do not want foreign military bases on their territory. This is a map of US military bases in Africa. And this is an old map, so it's probably increased since this was made. And now here we have the country of Iran. If you pay attention to the news, you know that our administration talks about Iran being a threat to US national security. Are any of you aware of any Iranian bases that are anywhere close to the United States? No, Iran does not have military bases around the world. Iran is, but if you look at the map of Iran, these flags of America are actually locations of US bases. So Iran is surrounded by US military bases. On its west side is the country of Iraq that has been occupied by the US for many years now. It's now the second longest war in US history. And on its east side is Afghanistan, which is the longest war in US history. And as you can see, all the bases surrounding Iran. So being a critical thinker, who might you think might be more concerned about their security and their safety? The US sincerely frightened about Iran, or possibly Iran a little bit scared having so many US military bases so close. So what are the concerns or drawbacks of such a US global military presence? I would love to have people raise their hands and give me what would be some of your concerns that you might consider would be a problem having so much bases around the world. Be brave. The economic cost, it's huge. Do you have any idea how much? Pardon? Billions of dollars. And the wars that we fought in the last 2 decades, that's costing trillions of dollars. Trillions is a number that we can't even fathom. It's beyond our sense of what $1 trillion are. But so the cost. What about other concerns about having military bases all over the world? What is one of the biggest problems we face in the world today? It's in the media all the time. People all around the world are really concerned about one of the biggest problems the world faces. climate change. So what would be a concern about having so many military bases around the world? The use of fossil fuel. What's causing the climate problem is so much fossil fuel and putting the carbon footprint up in the air. So the US, if you count all institutions around the world, all countries, the US Air Force alone uses more fossil fuel than any other entity. And that's because we have bases all over the world. You have to fly these soldiers around. You have to drive the big tanks and the big military trucks. They use tons of fuel. Any other concern about having military bases all over the world? I would love for some of you to come in closer. You feel so far away. Anybody brave enough to come in closer?
Doesn't that instigate more terrorism?
Okay, because?
Because they feel invaded, they want to get back at it.
Way to get back or try to defend their own land. It's a good point. Any other comments? So we have these bases to make ourselves secure, but in fact, we're making ourselves less secure because what we're doing is actually causing more people to want to kill us. Do you think that people in these countries want our bases there? I've said a little bit about it. What happens when a base closes down? Does anybody know what happens when a military base closes down? It has already become a very toxic piece of land. The water, the soil, because the US military uses so many toxic chemicals. And we have two military installations in San Francisco, the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard and Treasure Island, and they built houses on this land that used to be military installations. And people are already, they're having health problems. And so when we build these bases in other people's lands, we're polluting their land too. So that's another serious problem. There's so many things to say and I can get off track, but I think that what I want you to be aware of is the US is an empire. I don't know if you thought about that before you walked in the door, but I hope you think about it now. We are a US empire and we're imposing our stuff on people all over the world. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about the legality or the illegality of US drones. No question about it, killing people with drones is illegal under US law. I'm going to run through this really quick because we don't have a lot of time, but you can do a lot of reading and you'll find out more. The first reason it's illegal because it's premeditated murder. You're planning ahead and you're killing people ahead, planning it, plotting it. They trap people on the ground and they decide when they're going to kill someone. The second reason it's illegal is because assassination is illegal by multiple presidents in the past that had executive orders calling for assassination to be illegal. And it was under President Bush when he overturned that and started assassinating people. What's worrisome about drones is it's much more easy to assassinate people. You don't have to put soldiers on the ground. You don't have to put CIA agents on the ground and put their lives at risk. You can kill people very easily. It violates due process. It takes away someone's right to defend themselves. The US says they're guilty and they're just automatically killed. There's no judge, there's no jury, there's no trial. Guilty and boom, you're dead when the US decides to kill you. We're not respecting the rights of other people to also have due process. We're taking their due process away. And by the way, these points I'm talking about were put together by a constitutional lawyer, US constitutional lawyer, who's an expert on US Constitution. So I'm using part of his PowerPoint on this legality discussion here. Outside of armed conflict, the use of drones for targeted killing is never likely to be legal. The use of drones to kill civilians and militants where there is no imminent threat to human life is illegal under international law. Now, imminent threat is something that you will hear once in a while in the news. When the US fires a missile and kills a lot of people, a drone missile, within 24 hours usually, the US military and the government will say, well, there was an imminent threat and we had to do it. And I'm wanting you to be a critical thinker because the US is supposed to follow laws. So if they just say there's an imminent threat, then that's a way they can get away to do it, trying to protect themselves from any kind of legal action. But the US never explains what that imminent threat is. They just say, well, there was an imminent threat, so therefore that's why we did it. There's some drone papers that were released in 2015 by a whistleblower. We don't know who that whistleblower is, although one person is in suspect, and he is in prison right now for releasing secret military documents. In those documents, lots of facts about the drone program were released. But one of the things that was really important is it showed that even though the US government says drones are good because they're precise, we kill only the very worst people, they're very precise, when in fact high rates of civilians are being killed. So in the drone papers, one thing that revealed is that in a 5-month period in Afghanistan, nearly 90% of those killed by drones were civilians. So that's only 1 out of 10 were militants. And we don't even know about the rest of the time in Afghanistan or elsewhere. In 2012, there was a report released by some human rights researchers from Stanford and New York University. And they went into Pakistan because at that time there were a lot of drone strikes in Pakistan. The US was using drones a lot to kill the tribal people of eastern Pakistan. And so if you have any time, if you just Google living under drones, you'll get the report and take the time to read parts of it. It revealed a lot of important information. The report talked about not just the effects of when drones are used to kill people, but what are the effects on a people who are under surveillance 24/7. Imagine if you were living in the United States and there was a foreign country that was flying drones with cameras and watching everything you did every day from the air. So you felt always being watched. How would that make you feel? Would it make you feel safe? It also showed the report, they went into Pakistan and talked to lots of people, collected a lot of data, and they found that civilian deaths were being underreported. The US military uses force but does not go to serious efforts to collect the data about how many civilians are killed. And one of the most important points it raised is that when you have to live under drones that carry missiles and you don't know when they're going to be fired, because lots of people have lost loved ones in these areas, then it's very frightening. And people have PTSD, especially if they've been somewhere where they witnessed the aftermath of a drone strike. I told you it's not a pretty sight. Body parts lying around, and if you have to collect your loved one's body parts, that's a nightmare that you have to live with for the rest of your life. And so the people are suffering from depression, suicide. The reporters that are trying to cover the stories, and they go to one drone attack after another, they're really suffering from PTSD. And this is a picture of there was a photojournalist when I went to Pakistan on a peace delegation. I met this man, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name, it's quite a while ago, but he showed us a lot of the pictures of the children that were killed by US drones. He's taking tremendous risk. He was taking tremendous risk taking these photographs because it's helping to get the truth out about what's really happening. For many years under President Obama, his administration in counterterrorism denied any civilian deaths. And when they did finally admit to some, they way underestimated them because the US government does not want the truth out. And so this man is, by photographing the children killed, is taking risk on his life. I wanted to go over a couple key points about drone warfare. And one is, there's a thing called signature strikes. Does anybody know what signature strikes are? Anybody heard that term? Okay, under President Obama, there came public the practice, the US policy of killing people with drone missiles based on certain characteristics. They may not know who the person is, they may not know anything about the person, but certain characteristics. For example, if they're carrying a certain cell phone, and the US has identified that cell phone as being tied to somebody bad, then that person gets killed. So if so-called the bad person or the militant gives his cell phone to his grandmother that day, and the US tracks the cell phone, guess who gets killed? The grandmother. Sometimes people are identified as being combatants if they have a gun. But in a lot of these cultures, like in eastern Pakistan or in Yemen, where we're also dropping bombs on people, or helping Saudi Arabia drop bombs on people, or Libya or wherever. In a lot of these countries, it's normal to carry guns around. Aren't there places in the United States where there are people that carry guns? But the US just decided, that a male carrying a gun is a justified target just for having a gun, just for being watched from thousands of miles up in the air, putting a gun in his car, then we have the right as a signature strike to fire a missile on that person. There's a thing called double tap. Double tap is when the US fires a missile, people are killed and injured, and what happens on the ground in a country when a missile hits people and there's survivors? What happens? What do people do? They try to rescue them. That's the normal response. You've got someone near you that's suffering, that's screaming in pain, you want to try to relieve them, rescue them. The US has been known to fire missiles after a first strike, and that's called a double tap. And that means rescuers are killed. And this is a serious war crime. And there's been 15 known incidences of double tap. That doesn't mean there hasn't been more, just that means there's 15 documented cases of double tap. Under President Obama, it was declared that all males of military age in a combat area or an area that we're concerned about is considered a combatant. Any male of military age. So imagine 1,000 miles up in the air and you've got a video camera. Do you think that people at Creech Air Force Base or Beale watching the video footage, you think they'll be able to be sure how old that person is? So what is military age? Is it 15, 16? What if you're a tall 13-year-old? Then you're an acceptable target to the United States. I talked about surveillance on entire populations where people are terrified, and that's going on all the time. There's no oversight or accountability. If civilians get killed, the US, there's no court that takes the US to court for killing innocent civilians. There's no reparations for wrongdoing. If you lose a loved one in a drone strike, it's very, very rare the US has ever given any reparations for killing innocent people. And what's happened under Obama is there was a positive change, is that we didn't bring more prisoners into Guantanamo, the prison in Cuba that was used under the Bush era, although we still have prisoners there. What Obama started doing is, instead of capturing people, his practice was to kill people. People that were brought to Guantanamo and other prisons in Afghanistan and Iraq were tortured, treated inhumanely, but and some of them were killed, some of them died in those prisons in Guantanamo and elsewhere. But Obama decided, his administration decided that capturing was too messy, it's too risky, and what do we do with people after we capture them? Well, we keep them in prison indefinitely without trials. That's a big legal issue, to keep people indefinitely, like we're keeping the immigrants in prisons without trials for years sometimes, or many months. And so the Obama administration moved away from capturing people to just killing people. So I have a big question to ask you. And this is one I wish you would all move a little bit closer so we're all more together, but you're free to do what you want. Should the US be hunting people? The Creech Air Force Base calls themselves home of the hunters. They're proud to be called hunters of human beings. I would love for you to tell me your opinion about whether the US should be hunting people. And feel free to think differently because it's good to have open conversation. Anybody have any comment? I'm sorry, can you speak just a little bit louder?
I said obviously like not kids and innocent people, but it's people that are a threat to the United States, like that, you know, there's a balance. They obviously need more like how do you say, you know, yeah, they need more accuracy and just more like
So do you think these people that the US says is a threat to us? Do you think the US has to provide any evidence that they are a threat to us? And how much effort should be made to show that they are a threat? Now, if we are in foreign countries with our bases and we're occupying a foreign land, do we have the right to kill people there that we label bad?
and I think a lot has to do with the whole environment, battle. This has been something that's gone back history, like Israel and Iran, like you know, the Bible time, you know, that's why they're there because
Mhm. Okay, any other comments? I would love to hear some other voices out there. Well, I can say that drone pilots and operators who control these drones and they see the footage, so they fire the missiles and they on their cameras, the footage comes through back to Creech Air Force Base, back to Beale, and they see the suffering. So it's they have the war right in front of their eyes and they're suffering in a terrible way. They have high rates of PTSD and high rates of suicide. And the film I'm going to show has 3 people that have worked in the drone program. And you're not going to see, you're only going to see one of them because the part I decided to show is focusing on the victims, the people in Afghanistan. But at the end of it, at the end of the piece I'm going to show is one of the drone whistleblowers, a woman that worked at Beale Air Force Base. Her job was to look at the data and determine whether there's civilians in the area where they're about ready to fire strikes. And she tells people at Creech whether they should fire the missile or not, whether there are civilians, and whether they should not fire because there are civilians. So you'll hear a little bit about her, but she and many of the other former drone operators and people who work in the drone program have really serious mental health issues because they're doing something that's unnatural. To do this kind of killing is totally against our humanity, I believe. And they may never completely heal from what they participated in. And I highly encourage you to get this film on Netflix. It's called National Bird. And my husband gave you all a pink paper, I think, didn't he? Yeah, so it has the name of the film on that you're going to see. Try to watch the whole film and get your family and friends because the drone warfare is very secret. We hardly hear anything about it, but it's happening every day. There could be 50 missions going out, 50 missiles fired, and we don't hear about it on a daily basis, sometimes more than 100. Okay, and so we disconnected from the, I'm not sure what happened here. Can I have your help? Yeah, it went out about 5 or 10 minutes ago. I don't know if you unplugged something or what. Because I need to show a film. It just went off by itself. Oh. There we go. Oh, thank you. So smart. Okay. Okay, I am going to start the film now. So what this film was made a couple years ago. It's an incredible film. It's the best film on drone killing, the U.S. drone program I've seen yet. I've seen quite a few. And this is in the middle of the film. There was an Afghan woman who lives in the United States who went to Afghanistan with a former person in the drone program who was one of the whistleblowers in this film. And they start to interview victims of a particular drone strike. It's a real drone strike. And ultimately, you'll see that they reenact the incident. So here it goes. I don't have any volume. Where's my friend that was going to be here?
I don't think you're playing it yet, or you are. Okay. Mute button right here.
حادثه که میام بودم دم حادثه and I image acting چهار بودم
باید سراب به کجا گذاشت؟
اما دم حادثه که میام بودم دم حادثه همین تشریف همین پدر شتا پایین کرد بود یکی دیگه اون بچه مکشایش متضا هم بشت اون پایین کرد بغلش بود دیگه دخترت هم پایین میدد که زده شد دیگه بس زد آدمو حادثه همین تشریف همین حادثه که می حامله که خیبر مماده خیبر حادثه همین کلیگی همین تشریف دم حادثه شد
بچه که شهید شد نامش چی؟
مرتضا بود
چند ساله؟
4 بودم
دیگه که چی؟
سیما بود دختر من 7 بودم ایتا دیگه ولی مادر پدر چی نداره دیگه دختر من یک دختر بودیم سعی میکردیم خوب خوشگلی انسی ولی نبود خوب دست و پای خوب بود دیگه خدا جان پرد دیگه نمی‌فهم دیگه بچه من همونطور خوب بود دیگه خیلی خوش داشتیم من بچه خوب
ما غرض از این که از ایرای دور تا اینجا را تکلیف کشیدیم صدای ما رو بکشیم صدای ما رو جامعه جهانی بشنوه مسئولیت ما را ببینه از این که این بسیار بدطور فجانه و بسیار وحشیانه خانوادهشان یا شهید شدن یا زخمی و تیکا پاره شدن و همین خاطر آماده میکنیم
پیش از این محصل بودم، تصمیم داشتم که برم تحصیل خود ادامه بدم و یک دکتر شوم در آینده برای ملت و جامعه خود مصدر خدمت باشم. و ما هم یک تعداد محصل، یک تعداد مریض و یک تعداد دیگه هم که از این ولسوالی به ولایت دیگر پیش فامیل و دوست و اقارب خود میرفت.
Bullshit, where? Send me a fucking bill. I don't think they have kids out of this hour. I know they're shitty, but come on. I really got that shit in call, man. I really fucking need that. I think there's 3 people on the train. Guilty by association. They're praying. They are praying. Praying. I mean, seriously, that's what they do. They're going to do something nefarious.
امی زمانی که بودم یک سایکلان هستم، همون چی کلی باشد از این چیزی همه در ماست شدی زن نماز خواندیم از اونجی که حرکت کردیم دیگه همی صدای بمبک به گوش میام ولی اون چیزی که هوا آلوده بود دیگه نمیشد اما صدایش نمیشنید.
چیز بود رنگی سیاه داشت، یکی دیگه سفید بود در تبینیم او بینگ میزدم بینگ میزد دور دار میکرد.
اینه که ما برها شنیدیم که امی تیاری به پیلوت که در هوا میگشته او بسیار به فضای بلند به شب تاریک او خب ما دل ما نمیشه درد داره که تو برای دیگه چیزای دیگه مثلا تو فرق نکنی که مثلا این سوزن هست این مرچه هست ولی برای ما انسانایی که مثلا کلیش دکسن سوال بود که دکسن اون بعدش سوال بودن تمام نیست که تو برای دیگه مثلا من ندیدم این بعدش سوال بودن تو ندیدی که همش مسافر هستن همش زن باشه هستن.
Adolescent near the rear of the SUV. Okay, can't fight. Pick up a weapon and you're a combatant. How that works. Jack 25, there's 97. Be advised. All packs are finishing up praying and rallying up near all 3 vehicles at this time. Road tweet target. I try to get from bed. Put it right next there on the top. Oh, that'd be perfect. Jack 25, our screeners are currently calling 21 military-age males, no females, and 2 possible children. How copy? Roger. When we say children, we talking teenagers or toddlers? I would say about 12, not toddlers. I'm thinking more towards adolescents or teenagers. We'll pass that along to the ground for you, Commander. Like I said, 12, 13 years old with a weapon, dangerous. Oh, we agree, yeah. What's the master plan, fellas? I don't know. Hope we get to shoot the truck with all the dudes in it. Yeah. After then, let the party begin. Roger. And, oh, there it goes. Stand by.
مو مسافرين بس ما خطرش تلقى فاج تلقى بس ماشينا رستاك تلقى فاج بس فاج شدي فالماشين يتم بالازر بس مو سياسرات گفتن مردم گفتن که سیاسرات بدرشنا نمیزنم یا نمیزنم باز مو سیاسر بودیم بدر شدیم که ام زن
This is the first and the last out. You're going to come back around.
ماشینا زمین فاشیستا او خبرشگیات باید نشان انقلاب باید می‌کرد.
Looks like they're threatening. They're not running. Dude, this is weird. Shit. I don't know about this. Weird. That lady's carrying a kid, huh? Maybe. No. Yeah. The baby, I think on the right. Yeah. And that is the firm for Kirk 97. Since the engagement, we have not been able to PID any weapons.
آدم خود قدیم ندی زمانی که جور است یک طبیعت و یک غرور دیگه در جان انسان است بسیار دلخوش است آدم اما زمانی که معیوب شدی این مدیرم میسیم زو امیده که پای خط میشه گشتن سرعت آدم کم میشه این مدیرم خودم تکبر میکنه این برای همین قدر بغض دلیل هم جای مونه که فقط یکم دم خدا نمیکنه نمیکنه خب
See, this is what pisses me off. Where these fucking assholes are like, they're saying in here, DGS supposedly sees women and children. They're saying DGS supposedly sees it. We went to school for almost a year to be able to identify women and children. And this is a daily thing where the pilot and the SOs and everybody that's at Creech is constantly saying, no, DGS is full of shit. They don't see anything. This happened all the time. And I'd have to literally sit there arguing with these dickheads and have them just be saying shit like this to the people that I can't talk to because I don't have access to talk to them. God damn, the DGS fucking hated Creech because they were always trying to kill people. They always wanted to be blowing someone up. And all these officers, the Mick, the pilot, all these people, it looks good on their resume if they kill more people. And then here they're saying that everything's supposedly, DGS is supposedly calling this out.
What I want to leave you with, I know I'm going to, is that think about the U.S. history. Have we committed massacres? Raise your hand and tell me a massacre. The Native Americans, massacre after massacre, slaughtering the whole vast majority of people. What other examples? Mexicans, yeah, we took California from Mexico, right? Their land, our land. What other examples of massacres? The Philippines, slaughtered so many people in the war. The Vietnam War. Read a book called It was U.S. policy to slaughter villages of peasants. Vietnamese, kill anything that moves. They killed not only the women and children and the elders, they killed chickens and sheep, cows. They killed their water oxen to plow their fields. That was U.S. policy. When you talk to Vietnam veterans that are willing to talk about it, they will admit a lot of them won't. But and kill anything that moves. Total documentation about 3 million Vietnamese were killed. They were. We were told it was a threat to national security. They were going to spread communism around the world. We end up withdrawing from that war. 3 million people get killed, 55,000 American soldiers. And did Vietnam spread communism around the world? No. No. So there's a lot of propaganda to sell more. So, and what about during this pre-Civil War and how actually during the Jim Crow days? What terrible massacres. Against African Americans, the lynching. I went to Montgomery, Alabama, an incredible memorial to lynching set up in Montgomery. Lynching black people, hanging them on the street, lynching them in other ways. Sometimes they kill 8 or 10 people, sometimes more.
Testing. Can you hear the testing?
Oh, sure. Oh, okay. No, the fact that the person watching has faces. So Andrea covered it. That's what we have to make people.
You're